answer any essay question on honor in Chronicle of a Death Foretold with this simple breakdown. Today, we're going to go over a few key aspects of this theme and how you can wind them together to write 10 out of 10 essay topics on this tricky text. If by the end of this video you're still stuck on how to answer your essay prompt, drop it in the comments down below and I'll respond with how I would plan and answer it. The characters in Chronicle of a Death Foretold are deeply preoccupied with their honor. The town is characterized by traditional expectations, and the contravention of these is tantamount in some cases to social death. In the town, honor is many people's best-kept possession, and it can have life-changing or even threatening consequences. Bayardo decides to marry Angela because she's well-named, and after she loses this reputation, Santiago is killed so that the seduced sister was in possession of her honor once more. To start with, let's have a look at some sample topics you may get and break them down. The first thing to note is that nearly all of them follow the standard fancy quote or statement plus variation on "is this true" format. This means that your task is to write 1,000 words on some reasons why this might be true and some reasons why it might not. If you want an overview of the 2 easiest ways to break down prompts of this kind, please check out our video which goes through all the principles in detail. In this case, we're dealing with the theme of honor, so there are a few key things to keep in mind. Firstly, honor is quickly revealed to be the town's most deeply defended value. The people are of a prudish disposition, and, as the narrator's mother, Luisa Santiago, says, honor is love. To be dishonored, as Angela Vicario and even Santiago Nassar are, is to become dirt, and despite these characters losing their reputation and life respectively, Bayardo San Roman is considered by the town to be the only one who had lost everything. Not only does no one question actions done in the name of honor, but some people such as Prudentia Coates and her mother expect them. As Prudentia later tells the narrator, "I knew what they were up to, and I didn't only agree, I never would have married him if he hadn't done what a man should do." Likewise, her mother tells her sons that honor doesn't wait, encouraging them before the killing. But even if other characters don't support the murder so explicitly, many of them in fact outwardly condemning it, those who could have done something to prevent the crime and still didn't do it, consoled themselves with the pretext that affairs of honor are sacred monopolies with access only for those who are part of the drama. In this way, the characters in the novel condone murder through their inaction. An easy first body paragraph on the topic of honor would just be setting the scene. You could use this paragraph to outline the social and historical context in which the piece was written. Focus on aspects of the novel which show how deeply these people view the importance of honor. I would describe how Poncio Vicario lost his sight from doing so much fine work in gold in order to maintain the honor of the house, and how Angela Vicario prayed to God for the courage to kill herself before the wedding. Further, you could explore how an insult to pride not only invites a response, but sometimes requires a horrible duty. The Vicario brothers' killing of Santiago Nassar is the clearest example, but even Puro Vicario beating Angela after she's returned home would count. The above examples of Prudentia and her mother would also work to emphasize the town's entrenched expectations of a response to insulted honor. There are a few ways to add to this if you have the space and interest. Discussions of honor can be viewed through lenses of religion, class, and gender. If you wanted to go even further, you could mention Father Amador's response to the Vicario brothers' assertion of innocence before God, an irony since the Christian faith preaches that thou shalt not kill. It seems that the town's experiencing a kind of cultural cognitive dissonance. On the one hand, they're Christian, but on the other, their deeper, older cultural practices of honor are more important than any of the frivolities of organized religion. This is not unlike the practices of the Italian-American mob in the last century. Ostensibly devout Italian Catholics, they somehow managed to square their religion with the everyday brutality and crime of their profession. It would only be worth getting into the intersection between class and honor if you were sure that you could stay on track. But if I were to get into this, I'd consider the appeal of Bayardo San Roman to the town. He's described in the style of magical realism, like a fairy, and it appears that most of the townspeople view him with a sense of wonder, as if he can do no wrong. Only the narrator's mother, and possibly the narrator himself, view Bayardo with any skepticism. Whether he really is this amazing is questionable, especially following his drunken collapse, alone and with the lights out in the widow Isaias' happy farmhouse. The crossover between gender and honor is big enough to constitute its own paragraph, so for some essays this might make a good paragraph too. Honor is an almost entirely gendered concept in the text. The Vicario family is exemplary. The brothers were brought up to be men, the girls had been reared to get married. Women are expected to take care of the home in its entirety, and the best girls will be able to do screen embroidery, sew by machine, weave bone lace, wash and iron, make artificial flowers, and fancy candy. But most importantly, they must be raised to suffer so that any man will be happy with them. One of the greatest symbols of honor for a woman is her virginity, the motif of the bedstain. A man's honor, on the other hand, is tied to his respect within the town, the fidelity of his wife, and his ability to defend both. Hence, what factors determine a person's honor or reputation are directly tied to their gender. Let's return to our prompts. If I were to answer any of these, I could definitely make my first paragraph about the social preconditions for honor-motivated actions. A perfectly good topic sentence might look something like, Chronicle of a Death Foretold explores the intense and pervasive social expectations of honor and its defense in 1950s Colombia. Though, if necessary, you could modify this a little to match the specific topic more closely. For the second body paragraph, a good approach to the text would be to ask what happens in the middle of the chronicle. Most of the text is about how and why the murder is able to take place. Honor is certainly a precondition, but several other things augment or expedite the completion of the events. For one, there's fate. Additionally, there are the actions and omissions of the town. I categorize these into three broad categories: deliberate action, indirect condoning, and human weakness or frailty. Those who take a deliberate role in enabling the violence, apart from the Vicario brothers themselves, include Victoria Guzman deciding not to warn Santiago because, in the depths of her heart, she wanted them to kill him, and possibly even Flora Miguel, Santiago's fiancée, who claimed in her emotional outburst that she hoped they would kill him. These characters are largely driven by emotion. The townspeople who either do nothing or gossip the information along without warning Santiago are guilty of condoning the murder indirectly. Clotilde Armenta is a particularly interesting example. For all her insistence to her customers that they warn Santiago, not once did she leave her shop to visit the Nassar household, which was visible from her window. Perhaps the worst among these are the ostensible leaders of the town, Father Amador, and the mayor, Colonel Lazaro Aponte, whose weakness and incompetence constitute some of the most disappointing enablers of Santiago's death. After confiscating the Vicario brothers' knives, the mayor didn't think of Santiago Nassar again until he saw him on the docks before the murder, and then he congratulated himself for having made the right decision to have simply taken their knives rather than locking them up. Likewise, Father Amador intended to say something in passing to Placido Linero, but had forgotten completely by the time he crossed the square. His excuse is that, you have to understand, the bishop was coming on that unfortunate day. For the priest, the official ceremonies of religion are more important than its actual teachings. Despite being a minister in a religion which condemns killing, Father Amador claims it wasn't any business of mine, but something for the civil authorities, and that he didn't think he could do anything for Santiago Nassar except save his soul. A rather bland relinquishing of agency for such an important symbolic figure. So if we recap where we are so far, we have quite a comfortable first body paragraph about the social realities of honor in 1950s Colombia, and a variety of things we could talk about in body paragraph 2. The impact of fate on the plot, selfish or personal motives, and negligent or disappointing leadership. Any of these could also be used as a third body paragraph, so we could end here. However, we should check each of our sample prompts to see whether or not we can tailor for any of them an especially interesting or especially relevant third body paragraph. So let's go through each of them quickly in turn. This question sits apart a little for giving you the scope to go far beyond honor. You're asked about the driving forces in the town. Chronicle of a Death Foretold suggests that honor is the driving force of Colombia. To what extent do you agree? In this case, I would have at least one paragraph on honor. The other paragraphs could be any of the alternatives we gave for body paragraph 2, so this topic would be reasonably easily dealt with. We're being asked for what dictates or causes events in this one. Misguided notions of honor dictate the events of Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Do you agree? So again, we're more focused on how the tragedy comes about than on honor itself. You could use the same plan as for the previous topic, just making sure to change your topic sentences and the way you frame the argument. Alternately, if you wanted to answer the topic a little more specifically, I would focus on the social requirements for honor, so our standard first body paragraph, and then how these notions of honor caused not only Santiego's death, but also the return of Angela, her beating, and Beato's subsequent collapse. And for my third body paragraph, another factor such as incompetence, the town's complicity, or fate, which contributed to and eventually enabled these tragedies. Much of the trouble in Chronicle of a Death Foretold is caused by a preoccupation with honor. Discuss. I could answer this topic in much the same way. The first one, asks about how honor affects the plot, while the second, this one, asks about how much of the plot is caused by honor. They're similar enough that you can keep the same ideas and evidence and just tailor the wording with which you frame it. The next two are a little more specific to honor, so let's see how we can attack those. For the townspeople, in Chronicle of a Death Foretold, honor is the highest value. To what extent is this true? This topic is less about the causes of the tragedy than about the values of the townspeople themselves, so we have to adapt our plan here a little. One way we could do this is to split our initial paragraph on the social conditions into two factors: general expectations for honor and honor's gendered dimension, how men and women have different standards for honor. Alternatively, I would brainstorm different values of the town: social expectations, family, even gossip or community norms. Each of these could make a solid body paragraph. Probably the easiest structure overall, though, would be something like a discussion of the value of each of honor, gender roles, and family. One body paragraph each, and in that order. How does Chronicle of a Death Foretold explore the difficulties of fulfilling one's duty? Here, we're not being asked about how honor contributes to the events, or even how it ranks among the other values the townspeople hold. This entire question is just about whether or not fulfilling duty is easy. To answer this, I would use the true-false framework from our video on essay planning. And to start with, I would think through a list of every single character in the text, asking myself, for each of them, does this person either fulfill or run away from a duty of some kind? And as a result, does their character arc show that they find this duty hard or easy? Once I've got two lists covering all the characters, I would consider, for the characters who land on the majority side, why do they find duty hard or easy? This will split the bigger half of the evidence into two sub-paragraphs. Pretty soon, we'd end up with something like body paragraph 1, exploring how for many, honor is a deeply enshrined value which compels even distasteful action, which becomes a little bit of a sneaky body paragraph 1, as we had before on the community valuation of honor. In terms of my examples, I would talk about how Luisa Santiago and Cristo Bedoya try to save Santiago Nassar, and how it pushes them to act. If you wanted to talk about even the distasteful aspects of fulfilling honor, you could talk about the Vicario brothers. For my second body paragraph, I would say that, however, those who run away from honorable action reveal that sometimes the pain of shame is more comfortable than the pain of action as well. So my examples here would be Father Amador, the mayor, and possibly the townspeople again. If you're super shrewd, you might have noticed that in the end we're still talking about the same themes as above. We've just kind of worded them to be a little bit more in line with this topic. For body paragraph 3, we could use any of the following. Despite following the mandates of honor, characters can still be left with a sense of guilt or unease. For example, the Vicario brothers are unable to sleep in their cells, and they're followed by the smell of Santiago. Maria similarly is followed by Santiago's smell. We could even use as evidence any quotes showing the townspeople's ostensible guilt after the murder. Or, if I wanted to take a slightly different interpretation for this body paragraph, that those who ignore the call of duty might equally be followed by guilt, and you could discuss here Father Amador as well as the townspeople again. The townspeople could fit into either category, depending on whether you think they have fulfilled their duties or not, and the argument can go either way. There you have it, a simple framework for dealing with any essay topic in Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Comment below if you have questions. If you found this helpful, please pass it on. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. If you would like more content like this, please hit subscribe. And if you found this valuable, please hit that like button or send to someone else you think could use this. Your shares help us grow our audience so we can help more students for free. Happy studying!